Streaming is the next best thing to an actual lecture. As opposed to a pre-recorded video, when you do streaming, at least everyone is together, at least in digital form, and you can answer questions and at least have some form of interaction. I'm going to record this video to show how I've set up my streaming setup using Microsoft Stream, which is a streaming platform that's available to students and employees at Oslo Met. I set it up here in my home office, and what I'm looking for is a recording of the screen to show slides or whatever other software that I want to demonstrate. In addition, I want some kind of whiteboard facility. I'm actually just going to use pen and paper, and I want to occasionally record myself. And I want to be able to switch all these through around and compose how I want to do that and make that available as a stream. The same setup is actually also possible to use directly in Microsoft Teams if you want to have, let's say, just a meeting with colleagues.
Before I start, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my setup. Normally, I have two monitors, this one here and this one here, connected to the same computer. So that would be my normal setup. But now, as I'm demonstrating this for the first time, I thought I might set this up on my laptop. So right now, I'm using my laptop right here, and I'm using this monitor connected to that laptop. You can also tell here that I have my paper and a few Sharpies in order to do the writing that I intend to do. And I also have two cameras. One camera is this one, which is facing me, but there is another camera here that I've attached to my lamp, and that is the camera that looks down onto the paper. So I have multiple sources then that I can choose from. In the normal setting, I would have this display for what I stream, and instead of the laptop, I would have a window here that shows me the streaming settings, and I would have maybe another window here that would show me some chat interactions so that I can keep track of the viewers and answer any questions.
Step 1. The first thing we need to do is download an encoder, and the one that I'm using is called OBS Studio, which is free. And you go to obsproject.com/download, and if you're using Windows or Mac, at least you download the installer right here, and then you install it. And the next step is actually the most complicated one, but it's not that bad, but it is just setting up this broadcasting software. And what this software does is that this is the software that will record what's going on your screen and send that on to the stream platform. And then the only thing that the streaming platform does is just sending that on to everyone else.
The first time you start OBS Studio, it looks a bit like this. During the installation, it will ask you to do some auto detection and so on, but you can actually just try to skip as much of that as possible. But this right here is kind of your main app, and the black canvas here decides basically what you want to show in the screen. So what you do is you kind of compose this canvas based on different type of inputs that you want. So I'm going to add at least two inputs. One of them is the display, which will contain slides, and the other one will be a camera that points downwards towards my paper so that I also can show that I'm writing on something. So if you want to add stuff here, you just press this plus button right here that says add, and then you have several choices. Let's go to display capture, which is the simplest one. We'll call this one main display, like that. And then I get to choose which display. And right now you can kind of see this echo effect because I'm capturing the same display, but I'm actually going to choose the other one. And that is my bigger monitor, my external one. And now we can see that most of it is being filled by that image, but I actually don't want to have it covering the whole thing. So I'm going to drag the bounding box a little bit so that it fits within a little bit. Actually, this might actually be quite small in this scene, because if I have the slides here, I actually want to have more space for drawing stuff. All right, this is the first one. I'm going to add the second one as well, and that would be video capture device. And Let's call this one whiteboard, even though it isn't. And the main selection here will in fact be the front camera that points towards me right now. And you'll see that it captures me, but instead what I want to do is actually go in here and capture one of these webcams, which is that one. That one's nice. Okay. Now you can see right now that it is actually a bit too wide angle. I would like to zoom this in even more. So I'll try to go to these properties again. I'll just press here. This should open dialog from before, and I go to configure video and camera control, and I'm actually going to zoom this in once. That's a lot better. Okay. Okay, there we are. So I'm going to place this one down here. And this more or less covers exactly the paper that I have. There you go. You can see I should be able to write stuff on it right now, and I have disabled out of focus on the camera so that it doesn't spring in and out of focus. So let's call this scene right here. This is one scene, but let's see if I can add another scene. I want to add the same things as before. You can see I already have that one, which already exists. I want that one. And I also want the display capture, which I call main display. But here I want to arrange them a little bit differently. I want to have less of a drawing and more video. For instance, create that one small, have this one probably a bit larger. Just about there. Actually, where was it? All right, so I now have two scenes. I can switch between them. And you see it has this fade effect right here. And if I just do cut, it will then go directly between the two of them. So once I am inside the stream, what I can do is actually have this window open in my other display, and I can switch between scenes on purpose. So let's say I want to talk more about something that I want to draw, then I could just move to this standard scene and then mostly video if I want to talk more about slides.
So the setup I have here is almost ready, except for one more thing that I wanted to add. I also wanted to add my face, and that is for the parts of the stream where I want to spend more time talking, and perhaps only me and the slides, and perhaps the whiteboard much more minimal. So I'm going to set up one more scene for this. I'm going to rename this one because that one was mostly whiteboard. There we go. That's that one. And I think I want to use that one. And I'll just duplicate that so I don't have to do everything again. Video and face. And in this one, I add even another source. That would be a video capturing device. I call that face camera. And that is the one that I used before in the beginning of this video. But it will probably use that camera again exactly, but I want this one. There we go. So that is the front camera. That's the one that is on top of my monitor. Great. The next thing I need to do is just place that on the canvas where I want it. Something perhaps up here, like this, and I'll keep them over there. All right, so then we have here mostly white, mostly video, and this with the face. Great. I'm now more or less ready to actually start the stream. So I'm done with OBS Studio. The next part is going to the stream site itself and starting the live event there. Now what you want to do is go to the URL web.microsoftstream.com. This takes you to the Microsoft Stream platform. It asks you to log in with your Oslomet credentials, and then you can tell here that you come into some branded site. If you have videos here already, they'll show, but what we want to do is create a live event, which is here. So I press create and then live event. Notice that you can use this to upload existing videos as well, which is mostly what I do. But this is for creating a live event because I don't want to go through the hassle of pre-recording. I just want to create it there and then. It shows you a screen like this, and this is where you create the stream. For instance, ACID promotion. Let's say that there's a web stream where I'm going to promote a master's program. That's fantastic. I could also add a proper picture here if I want to. And then the next step would be the language and when it starts. You can let it be available at a certain point in time. I like to choose this instead as soon as the encoder is connected. And here is the permissions tab, and I recommend while you are experimenting, remove this checkbox right here, because this means that no one else can see your stream, so you can experiment without anyone really noticing. If you want to keep your stream to a limited audience, you can create groups, for instance, and share it with only a selective group, such as a particular class or colleagues, so on. And the next part right here in terms of options is whether or not you want people to be noticed. I think it does some kind of image recognition, and whether or not you want to add comments. Now, this is easy to misunderstand because it might give the impression that users can now comment, or your viewers can send you comments throughout the lecture. And you know what? That's not possible. I know, it's really irritating. It would be the extra feature that would actually be quite needed here, but in order to have interaction, we actually need a second platform for that, such as Microsoft Teams. So you could have a channel on Microsoft Teams where people can ask questions, and you can have that Teams channel on the monitor that is not being recorded, so that you yourself can pay attention to that. When you choose comments here, it just means that after the video is recorded, like after the stream is finished, your viewers can still look at the stream and then they can comment. So it's I wouldn't say it's completely meaningless, but it's not. I mean, it would be a lot better if they could comment throughout the stream. And you want to have this option, which means that it auto generates a caption file, especially if you have it in English. This means that you get subtitles, which is great because it increases the audience that can actually see and understand the video. And the rest isn't that necessary. You can then press publish. So at this point, the event is created and others will see the event, and they can also press on it, but they will only see this particular front page that you have created. So they will only see this picture right here, and this is why you might have a fancy thumbnail or something. So they can already enter it, but they won't see anything unless you start it. So you could create this particular page, for instance, hours, even days before, and then share the link. And if you wonder where you share the link, then that is in fact up here. And this is share. You can also send an invite. And that is how you then propagate the URL to the viewers that you want to have. So they would now then be sitting here and waiting for the stream to actually start, but they would at least see something. What we need to do to actually get started is to connect OBS Studio with Microsoft Stream, and you cannot do that until you press Start Setup. When this happens, it creates the kind of back-end capturing device that you will send your data, your stream to. This takes a few seconds, and once this is ready, you will see a URL. So now it says ready to connect, and now we have a massive URL right here. I press copy on that one, and then I go back here. And let's say I want to start with mostly video. That would be my starting scene. All right, I go to settings and stream, and in this URL, you see I've done this before. I paste. You have to choose some kind of key, and that doesn't matter. I just type 1 2 3 4 5. There has to be a key there. Notice also under the service, I think the default is Twitch or something. You just choose a drop down menu and you choose custom. Then I press apply. That's okay, and at this point I should be ready to start streaming. And you see here that it changes a bit of the metrics here. You can see that something actually happens, and we should then also here soon be able to actually see some of the imagery coming up. The audience still won't see it, so I haven't started the actual stream just because OBS Studio is starting to send, and you can tell here I'm now sending my video stream, and I can tell it. The audience can't see it because if I press here, you can see that this is what I know that the audience sees. Now here's perhaps one of the most disappointing things is that let's say if I hold my hand over the paper and you can't see it, but nothing seemingly happens in the stream, and that is because there's actually quite a long delay from when you capture something on your computer until the audience can see it. So you can see if I go back to OBS Studio, this is the image that I can see, and right there you can see that I have the hand that I held before when I was talking about that. So here I do the hand once again, and you can see it takes quite a long time until it actually shows up in the stream, and this means that there will be a delay between what I say and what I show and whatever reaction I can get from the audience. So if there would be a question on something, it would actually be then 60 seconds later or so that I would get the question back. So there's no real use of asking the audience in the stream, does anyone have any questions? Because that just means that I have to wait for 2 minutes or so before I actually see it, because they have to type it. So I guess a better strategy is simply to just talk and do the lecture and make sure that you have enough spaces that you can naturally create breaks, and then pay attention to your second monitor, the one that isn't captured on the screen, and there you can choose the different scenes, but you can also have a chat window from, let's say, Microsoft Stream and Microsoft Teams, I'm sorry, and then you would be able to handle questions as they pop up. I guess that is the best approach, but it does create a delay, and I hope that Microsoft Stream will become a little bit faster in the responsiveness. Perhaps the internet connection matters as well. This is obviously from my home internet connection, but it should be, I guess it should be good enough. And maybe there's some tweaking with the settings that one can do to optimize a bit more. Anyway, I'm ready to start the actual stream. I guess my audience is anxious to start. I'm not really ready. I obviously have to start some slides. Here are my promotional slides. I start them on the main display. There, let's see, this should be nice. Right, there's that, and I'm almost ready. I should probably start with the face. So once I start the face, I should then be ready to press start the event and then start talking. There's the face. I go back here. I wish I had a bigger monitor, but that's okay. And I start the event. Once I press start here, I should be prepared to start talking. So I'm just going to record a few seconds just for fun. Sitting up straight in my chair. There you see it's starting. With the proper delay. Hello everyone, welcome to this live stream where we are going to talk about the master's program called ACIT. I hope all of you are considering taking a master's after your bachelor's. It is definitely a recommended choice if you want to have an expert education that can open several doors later for in your career. Stay tuned when we go through the entire presentation. If you have any questions, please ask on the team's channel. There you see. What I do next is I can simply wait for, obviously I have to wait for myself to finish here, and I can then end the event, and when that happens the event will be stored so that others can review it. Okay, looks like I'm finished. I'm going to close the event. There we are. I'm going to end the event. Now there is a bit of robustness built in here in case something should crash, and then you could possibly reconnect to the stream. If not, then you can see it doesn't actually take too long to set this up. Once you have OBS Studio set up with all your favorite scenes that you think you're going to use, then it's actually quite quick to get started. Okay, it's been a few minutes. The video has been trimming, and I've also done something else. I added a thumbnail. I went here, I give it a name, and I uploaded a file that could then serve as the thumbnail. The issue then is that it actually then overwrites the title. So the title that you could see when you entered the stream isn't showing in the video later. So if I wanted to be very particular, I'd make a particular thumbnail that would also have the title and so on the image itself, but it's visible next to it. And there you can see the finished video. Another thing that's interesting, you can tell now if I go back to the video the proper way instead of just this editing view. This is how it looks for anyone else who looks at the video later, and what you can tell now is there is now a transcript that is automatically updated, and you can see it has done a pretty good job in capturing what I said, so that you can follow this even if I say mumble or speak too fast, or if I am deaf.
So this was the entire setup. Let's have a quick summary to discuss what we have discovered together. First of all, a stream is really good if you already have OBS set up for you. As you can remember, setting up these scenes takes a bit of time to get used to angle the cameras, make sure you have the right lighting, and basically set up the composition that you're interested in. But it's not that difficult, to be honest. It can really be done. And the nice thing also is, as opposed to just recording slides directly in PowerPoint, say, this is a much richer experience for the viewer because you can combine multiple sources and switch between them, such as I demonstrated with having simply a paper in addition to a screen and perhaps also camera. And you can have whatever variations you want, like you can do it completely without showing your face. And all right, so The ability to comment during the stream is actually not that good, but more professional streaming platforms such as Twitch and so on, they have this interaction. And I know that they are still actively working on stream, so I'm kind of guessing that this will come at some point. So right now it's not there, but it can be worked around with some other chat channel. I would not use a discussion forum or anything because that is kind of too slow. You need to see it there and then when it happens, even though there is a delay. So all in all, I really like using Stream. One of the best things I think is the fact that it gives me a caption later. So it makes the lecture and the video much more universally designed and more accessible to all. However, it's not always the case that Stream is best. I also have my bad list here. And first of all, as you can tell from the noise just a few minutes ago, I was streaming while I was recording, and that was simply too much for my laptop. So the fan started acting up, and you can see that if the equipment doesn't work well, it creates a really uncomfortable situation for everyone. And that is a kind of noise that you cannot block out later either with some noise reduction in your editing. So if your laptop is slow, if the microphone is bad, let's say if there's a lot of background noise, if there's a dog barking, if there's a cat screaming in the background, anything will interrupt you. And the worst part also is that the viewers will notice that you are interrupted and you will kind of lose your thread. And this kind of stumbling when you speak just feels worse when it happens on a stream because everyone is just basically looking at it happening as opposed to a normal lecture where you can kind of stare in the air for a second and search for the right words, but here it kind of feels very awkward. The last thing is that if you have a very slow internet connection, I suspect that also the video quality and the overall quality may suffer, but I haven't really investigated how bad it can be. And you can also play around with some of the settings in OBS Studio and make sure that it sends at a much lower quality. Anyway, there are a lot more tips and tricks that I could talk about, but these are the main reasons, things that I can come up with on the go. If you have watched the video so far, I'd like to thank you for all the attention. I hope this has been useful. The best advice I can give you is just to start experimenting yourself, and you'll become better at it, I'm sure.